YouTube Oziko in the Goat House is back. After day one of the NFL Combine, some freaks out there were here to give you my winners and losers, big risers. A lot of guys performed very well. A lot of guys had good workouts. We're going to kind of highlight the guys that really stood out, guys that really helped their stock. And, of course, at the end, we'll talk about some guys that I think hurt their stock a little bit. We'll do this for each day of the NFL Combine, so I'm really excited about it. We have live updates not only on the Combine, but NFL in general, NFL news on our Twitter. It's on your screen. There's also a link pinned in the comments. Link pinned in the comments for our Discord as well, and our sponsors, GLD Shop, Liquid IV, Walk the Mock, some codes for those sites. GLD Shop has some NFL logo pendants, team logo pendants, and they have other things like this Micah Parsons chain that I'm wearing right now, which Micah Parsons actually wears in games, so pretty cool. Full NFL coverage here, covering everything that has to do with the offseason right now, so join us, like, subscribe to notifications on any link you're looking for. Pin in the comments. So day one was defensive linemen, pass rushers, linebacker, starting with a big winner, a defensive tackle, Bryan Bresee of Clemson, who had a standout day. I mean, not just, well, first the obvious. I mean, it's a 6'5", 305 defensive lineman. It's a big boy, 305 pounds, and being able to move like he did, 4'8", 171, 10-yard split. Those are kind of the highlighted numbers there. I mean, right there, you know, that's pretty damn impressive. Obviously, trying to find a big body guy like this to be able to move like that. But I think something that people really aren't talking about that much is that this is a guy that's kind of dealt with injuries, some fluky things like different weird health issues, throughout his career and somewhat recently. So he had almost every excuse to kind of take it easy. Maybe, these types of guys kind of don't do these drills and they kind of wait to the pro day and go from there. Maybe we can do it at the pro day. And there's some guys that are just perfectly healthy and they don't even do these drills, for whatever reason. And he's out there not only giving it a go, giving it his all, doing a really good job, but just putting out some good numbers and some good things in the on-field drills as well. So either that was big, showing the type of guy he is and performing well. Well, maybe some people expected him to be one of those guys that didn't go out there and do that. So, 4'8", at 305. And he was more maybe of a defensive end coming out of high school. And then Clemson moved him around a bit, but they did find a home for him. And he's got, at this big weight here. And it's almost kind of like he found a home, with his weight and his position. It's not like he's flipping back and forth or anything like that. So we know what he is at this point, so that's great news as well. Very early in this process, he was kind of more known as a mid-first round guy, and then he started kind of getting pushed back a little bit. You worry about the health, the durability, things like that. So he's kind of getting pushed back to late round one, but I think he's kind of back up there in the middle of the first round. Could he possibly go somewhat early, maybe a little earlier than the middle of the first round? It's a possibility. So you see some team fits in there where he could possibly go. So he definitely helped himself there. Kind of in the same category here is Dexter, the Florida defensive tackle. I mean, he's a very big boy, 6'6", 310 pounds, and been able to move like he did, 4'8", 840, and good numbers all around. You see the vert 31, we'll take that. But there's guys of that size that are running like well above 5, in the 40, like, 5'2" even. And it's like, it's all right. He's a big guy, but then you got this guy going out here and doing that. Pretty damn impressive. And his name kind of got a little quiet too. Like early in the year, I mean, right away, he was already standing out against like Utah week 1, and some big games early on. And he played great the rest of the year, but, hear his name talked about at that time, early season a lot. Then it kind of went downhill, not downhill, but you heard his name talked about less and less. And maybe at one point we're talking early second, maybe some people were talking late first, but it's really kind of getting pushed down to, mid to late second. Now maybe kind of working his way back up here to early second. Could still see mid, but some people kind of been talking about him mid to late second to early third. I think mid is kind of that bottom part now. So a really good outing for the big Florida defensive tackle there. A little bit somewhat different type of defensive lineman here in Calijah Kancey. He does play the interior. He doesn't have the size, the build of some of the other guys. He's only 6'1" and 281, not the lengthiest dude, which those traits definitely matter, the measurables. So that's kind of the downside with him. But he dominated on the interior, is very good at Pittsburgh, stop and run, but especially getting after the quarterback. It's a guy you feel maybe you can put as a defensive end as well at times, and he let him go to work. I mean, he runs a 4.67 40, 1.64 10-yard split. Those are incredible numbers there, obviously, for him. Yeah, he's not as big as the other guys, so maybe he should have good times, but those are incredible times. Before he was kind of early second. Now I think he goes late one, which some people were kind of talking late one, but there was just kind of that feeling where it's like, man, he just doesn't have the measurables, and he's, is he undersized for inside? Now he kind of looks like he's athletic enough for outside. So, but he's so good on the inside at the same time. And then you have these numbers to back him up, where I think teams will feel a little more comfortable with him in late one. And I'm blocking it. That says late one. But it could even go in the middle of the first round as well. I think it's a possibility. He's just such a good player. And some comparisons to former Pittsburgh defensive lineman Aaron Donald, who wasn't the biggest guy either. A little more productive, a little freakier, obviously a little stronger, but Kancey was very productive, and he's somewhat of a freaky dude. On to the edge rushers, Nolan Smith kind of shocked the world there. The edge rusher from Georgia, freaky dude, former number 1 overall recruit, 4.39 40. That is ridiculous for a pass rusher. 10-yard split is absolutely ridiculous, 1.52, and then a record vertical at 41.5 is absurd as well. Obviously, I mean, that is getting up there for a big guy like that, pass rusher. I know he's somewhat of a smaller pass rusher, but he's still a big dude. And before it was kind of, I mean, some people were even talking about late first and early second. We were kind of hyping him up recently. He's going to go a lot earlier than people think. But I think he's going to go early round 1 now. I think that is a strong possibility, maybe mid round 1 at the latest. But this is a freaky dude that people want to work with. And you could look at the stats, and he doesn't really have crazy production, but if you watch the tape, it's okay because the play is there. The production will come. And Georgia had their, edge rushers dropping back a bit, a lot of sitting and reading, plays, the ball, I should say. And, when they let him kind of go to work, he went to work, and he stopped the run very, very well. Maybe you don't expect that from a 6'2", 238 guy, but stopped the run very well. The get-off explosiveness shows on tape as well. So this guy's got everything you're looking for, and he's coming from that best defense in football, and then he has the freakish tools you want to work with. It's a reason why he's number 1 overall recruit. So it's a guy that's going to go earlier than you think. I think he fits as a 3-4 outside linebacker, as an edge rusher. A team that can let him stand up and go to work there. So really stood out here at the Combine today. So that's definitely a guy to watch, early in round 1. A lot of the guys that are just, we already know are really good stood out. Sometimes you got some sneaky guys, but the guys that we know are really good. Those are the guys that end up standing out there. Byron Young, the Tennessee pass rusher, who's underrated, had a very impactful, productive year for Tennessee, but not really getting talked about a whole lot. And then he went and showed out at the Combine here at a 4.43 40. The broad jump, ridiculous. That was like top of the class there at 11. And then a vert that, not quite Nolan Smith, but it's a freaky vert. So across the board, incredible numbers. The way he runs, too, you see that. Yeah, before he wasn't getting talked about enough. Early third, I think middle of the second. The play on the field was just good enough to be getting this talk in the first place. So, it's not like he's too light. Dude, he's definitely not too big. So he's a guy that kind of came out of nowhere this year, I thought. So maybe that's why. And there's just so many good pass rushers. So he just hasn't really been getting talked about that much. But I'd watch out for him in the second round now. Absolute freak show. I mean, across the board with these numbers was ridiculous. And Adebawore from Northwestern, I think this was the biggest winner of the day. Of course, Nolan Smith kind of is the biggest standout, biggest name. 4.39, incredible. Round of applause there. But the Northwestern defensive lineman, I think this is the biggest winner. I mean, this guy at 6'2", 282 pounds. 282 pounds. A guy like that big to run a 4.49, and the other numbers are great as well. I mean, a 37.5 vert is ridiculous, but the 4.49 to be able to move like that and have some good measurables too, wingspan, fantastic. I mean, it's ridiculous. You don't see guys like this every day. And then you factor in, just that alone, coaches, teams probably want to work with this kid. A lot of upside here. But then you factor in, we saw him like in drills in the Senior Bowl, like one-on-ones. He looked really good, almost looked unblockable at times. So he kind of proved what he can do on the field. But then you look at the tape as well. He had a really good season with Northwestern, and he just feels like a guy that you can move around a bit. You can put him off the edge. You can put him over the tackle, inside the tackle, three technique, possibly a defensive tackle, over the guard if you needed to. So a guy you just want to work with. Like, he can do all these things. He's so strong. He's so fast. He's so powerful. It's just this is the biggest winner of the day. So before early round 3, after, I'm going to say early round 2. And I keep blocking these things. I should have moved myself over there. That'll work a little better. So, yeah, I think that he kind of boosts himself an entire round. I mean, could he sneak into the back end of the first? I mean, there's teams that value these types of things, like the traits, the upside, guys they really want to work with, a guy that can help us in multiple different ways. So I think it's possible. I think it's possible there. So that he could sneak up, that early. I'm not really counting on him late first, but I cannot rule that out. So I thought this was the biggest winner of the day, just an absolute freak and a big guy too. Next, we got a linebacker. The last group with mainly linebackers, some pass rushers, wasn't, overly, it's kind of where we expected guys to be. Maybe a little slower than the other groups, but Owen Pepo from Auburn really stood out. It's a guy that really caught everyone's eye and kind of got a guy we got to watch a little bit more and take a more of a look at here because how he stood out at the combine. But yeah, the issue with him is he's a little undersized. Obviously, 6 foot 225. He was productive at Auburn. Didn't make a huge impact, I suppose. They got a number of good defenders. Derek Hall ran a pretty good 40. It's kind of what I expected from him, though. I like his tape a lot. I thought he'd be a little more explosive in those, the vert, broad jump, those drills. But yeah, a lot of good defenders on Auburn there. But a 4.39 and an off-ball linebacker, pretty damn impressive. And just across the board, showing he's an explosive athlete. So, and then every year, what do we notice? Athletes are taking over more and more. Some guys are even getting smaller because the really freaky guys are staying the same size, but also more athletic. But we're even getting smaller at some positions just to get more athletic. And we've seen that with linebacker specifically. The linebacker position is probably the position that has changed the most in the last 5-10 years. I'd argue. You could argue other spots too, but I'd say linebacker. I mean, these guys that are kind of built like older safeties. They're fast, flying around the field. So maybe you can find a home for him and work with that athleticism. He's coming from a good background, good defense there. But yeah, it wasn't talked about much before. You do worry about being a little undersized, and for those guys like in that position that are a bit undersized, like were they like crazy impactful or freaky on the field, then it's a different story. And he was good on the field, don't get me wrong. But yeah, kind of later, day 3, maybe he can move himself up, team take a shot on him with his athletic traits there. And then a list of other guys I do want to talk about here. I'm on the screen twice, making some adjustments mid-video. Other day 1, winners and losers here. Jalen Redmond, defensive lineman from Oklahoma, had a really productive day in terms of, the numbers, I guess, the testing, I should say. Which he was somewhat productive at Oklahoma, so it's a guy I'm going to have to go back and watch. Him and Zach Pickens kind of in the same boat. Pickens from South Carolina, defensive lineman, he was very good tester today. Some good numbers showing that they're freak athletes. Both of them are in the same boat though because they're kind of tweeners. Like where do we put these guys? Are they 3-4 ends? Are they 3 technique guys? Like defensive tackles. I guess they got the athleticism to be 4-3 ends. They aren't as freaky athletes and as agile, maybe even though they are, as some of the today's NFL edge rushers. So it is a little tough where to put them. So they're kind of still stuck in there. And some of those, they're so schemes dependent, scheme specific maybe, that did their stock change a whole lot. Because I think there's only going to be a handful of teams interested, and they know they can maybe wait for them then. But these are good players. They both had pretty good years, and they had a really good outing at the combine. Kind of in the same position category, Jalen Carter, stock down for obvious reasons. The off-the-field issues that came up. I mean, that it didn't get resolved at all, but they took a step pretty quickly, I suppose, where he went back to Georgia, and they got, posted bail, whatever, got cleared out, came back. I thought he was going to work out when he came back. He did not do that, but some questions. I mean, a guy that could have been the first overall pick and still could be, but I mean, it's, for obvious reasons, the stock's probably down at least a little bit. Still a super talented guy. DJ Dale, defensive tackle from Alabama, stock down. We didn't expect much from him testing-wise, and he wasn't like this big-time prospect or anything, but, a guy, a defensive tackle that's just over 300 pounds, he's kind of tested like your bottom-tier guys that are like 330, 340. So he kind of tested in that range, while there's guys heavier than him making more of an impact out there. So, didn't test too well. And Yaya Diaby, the edge rusher from Louisville, really stood out. Very athletic. We saw that. It looked pretty smooth on the on-field drills as well. But we've seen the explosiveness drills in the 40-yard dash. So it's a guy that we have to look at a little bit more. Kind of some guys that are pretty good, kind of known as mid-round guys, maybe like round 4 for him, around there. Kind of getting lost, though, because the other good pass rusher, so maybe he's going to go even earlier in that. Isaiah Foskey, Notre Dame, kind of being talked about, possibly late first, but mainly in the second round. He's probably around the same range, but he got out there and showed some good things. I think across the board, like there's some guys that did something really, really well. Maybe they don't do this really well. I thought across the board, every single thing he did, maybe he didn't do anything like elite, but he did everything pretty damn well. It was a 4.5, 4.40, which is really good for him. And when you watch him on tape and when you watch him move around, you kind of get the vibes that this guy could be a 4.3 end or a 3.4 outside linebacker, just an edge rusher in any scheme. Like, he can do it for you. He can put his hand in the dirt. He can stand up. You see that on tape. We see that just on his body type and the measurables, the athletic ability, with the field, the drills as well. We kind of see that from him. So, did his stock really, really change? No, maybe not. That's why he's on this list, not the highlighted guys, but really good across the board. Mike Morse, the Michigan pass rusher, stock down. I mean, the athletic testing numbers were not good. You expect him to be a little bit better than that for, a 270, 275 defensive end. Should be a bit better, running in the 5s, 5'1", around that range. It should be better. And he looked very sloppy in the field drills as well, kind of falling down, losing his footing, a little bit off balance. So the opposite is what's kind of taking over today's NFL is the pass rushers, so that's a tough go for him. And Brenton Cox, who's Florida's pass rusher, who's about 250, like 250, 255, that range, top of my head. He's in that range for sure, though. But those types of guys you expect to be a little freakier, higher standards these days because how freaky some of these guys are. But but running like some of the slower pass rushers there, like a guy that's weighing like 280, 290 is where his numbers were. So that isn't great either. Trenton Simpson, I almost expected him to run with a 4.50. In on-field drills, he looks smooth. He's an athletic dude. I kind of expect these things, so it's not like they're really good times, really good numbers, really good movement, smooth. It's all really good. It's almost what we expected, though, but for him to be kind of towards the top of everybody in that round, the third group in day one, is a good sign there, but kind of showing that maybe he could sneak back up into that first round, which he kind of is in that range still. But then some more stock downs. Nick Herbig, the edge rusher from Wisconsin, which is unofficial 40, looked really bad, but the official one ended up being a little bit better, 4.65. That's I guess that's fast enough. But when you got a guy like this, that's undersized pass rusher, like very productive pass rusher, but undersized, and you look at the measurables, which is the reason he's on here. He's just not long at all, which everyone's looking for the long pass rushers these days. These guys are freaky fast and they're long, so he does not have that length except the production. But you need him to do something freaky with the running, the testing, things like that, and he didn't really do that. So he wasn't thrilled about that. Andre Carter from Army, which I watched, I kind of talked about on Twitter when I was watching edge rushers, kind of like recapping what I saw with other guys, kind of looking at the positive. I didn't talk about Carter really, but my takeaways from his tape was I was pretty underwhelmed. I did a little off balance, a little all over the place in a bad way. And people were kind of hyping him up. I think it was because of his production in 2021. So I was not thrilled. I mean, some people have been talking about him day 2. I have not put him in there yet. And after I watched that tape, I was more thinking, the back end of day 3 even, which no one's really saying that. But then lacking explosiveness, and we saw that in the first couple drills with the vert and the broad. I mean, very bad, like at the bottom of the day. You just need guys that are more explosive. It kind of matches up with the tape, as well, and he did not run the 40 then. We kind of need to see that from him, so that's a tough one from him. It's a guy that's kind of been stocked down for me since I watched the tape, but there's some people, oddly enough, out there are a little high on him. I thought about putting guys on here that didn't participate. It was a little bit disappointing. But, did they really hurt themselves? I guess the pro day will determine that. But a guy I really thought about putting on here, Myles Murphy, the Clemson pass rusher, because I like Myles Murphy. He's really good, and he's a 275 guy that could potentially run really fast and test very, very well. And he didn't go out there and do that. So that's tough. But that wouldn't really make him a loser. But the fact that other pass rushers are kind of catching him and passing him. Nolan Smith is one example, but some other guys too. Lucas Van Ness been getting some buzz. We'll talk about him in a second. But he's kind of letting these other guys pass him up while he could have very easily put on a show here. So I almost put him up here. Tyree Wilson didn't need to work out. I mean, I would like for him to, but I heard Tyree Wilson interviewed very, very well. The Texas Tech pass rusher that's expected to go top 10, very well should go top 10. So that's almost a good thing that he interviewed very well. Zach Harrison, I was really excited to watch. The Ohio State pass rusher, watch him go to work here at the Combine. Should have tested very well. Tweaked his hamstring apparently right before, so that's tough. Mozzie Smith, kind of a similar situation from Michigan nose tackle, which he probably wouldn't have tested that well. But is he hiding that? But I heard he tweaked something perhaps. So that's tough as well. Lucas Van Ness, people talking about him as a winner. Yeah, he tested pretty well. He didn't do anything different than what I thought he would do. I actually thought, the 40, I thought he'd run a little faster than 40, but it's right around that range. 4.6s is plenty fast enough. Yeah, he looked pretty good on the drills. The explosive drills were the explosion drills, which is vert and broad, little underwhelming. I thought he would be a lot better than what he was. So those were underwhelming. The other things were good. He's pretty much right around where I thought he would be. So there's really no reason. He's still around that top 10 range, maybe a little later, maybe a little earlier. He's still around that range, but he's being talked about, quite a bit. So a lot of guys did well. It's hard to highlight every single person, but guys that really stood out to me, the guys that this kind of solidified their position, that they're a very good player and athlete, which really matters for today's NFL. Combine matters more now than ever because today's game. But guys that really help their stock as well. That's why they're on this video. So let me know your guys' thoughts. If you think I missed somebody you want to talk about, we can talk in the comments or on Twitter. Always talking to you guys on Twitter. Live updates on the Combine and the NFL news in general on our Twitter. So check that out. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. We'll have a video like this for each day of the NFL Combine. We'll have maybe like a recap, the biggest winners after all that, and then a post-Combine mock draft early next week after all of this, the fun at the Combine here. So hopefully you can join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Check out our recent videos. You won't be disappointed. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.